All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome to the Sendgrid and Sendwithus webinar. Today we're going to talk about how to stay out of the penalty box when it comes to email. I'm Kelly, and we're going to do a little introduction. Luke, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Luke Martinez. I'm a deliverability consultant at Sendgrid. I've been here almost 3 years now. I consider myself a really good problem solver, good attention to detail. I am definitely a deliverability expert. I love email, and I love all the problems associated with keeping people out of the spam folder and making sure senders get the most out of their email programs. I'm a recovering food service professional. My previous life, I was a waiter for about 9 or 10 years. I don't miss time in the restaurant, but I think it's an important part of the skill sets that I developed. The really customer-centric kind of service oriented focus does a lot for me in my current position. But yeah, it's good to see y'all here.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke. And I'm super excited. I'm Kelly. I do marketing at Sendwithus. I've been working in the tech marketing field for over 9 years, and I'm a total email nerd. I think my friends get tired of me either laughing or being horrified about different emails that I receive. So it's nice that working, at Sendwithus and with cool people like Luke, I can nerd out about it and not lose any friends. But outside of work, I love animals. I have 2 dogs, and cheese is my favorite food group. So, all right. And then just a couple house cleaning items or housekeeping items for the webinar. I think I mentioned earlier, but there's a function within Zoom to ask questions. Feel free to drop them in there. If it's something related to, obviously tech or something, we'll resolve that as quickly as possible. If it's a question about the content or a follow-up question, we're actually going to have Q&A at the end. And anybody that asks a question, we're going to enter you in to get some swag. So, do that. And then we're also going to, we're recording this right now, and I'm going to send out a link to the recording as well as the slides, so you can take these great bits of information and implement them across your email program. So with that, all right, Luke, if you want to talk for a second about a little bit of background about Sendgrid.
Yeah, sure. So Sendgrid's we started off as an email infrastructure company. So a really scalable, robust email API to let senders send just about as much mail as they want, as fast as they want. That's kind of our core, product, our bread and butter. We recently, about a year and a half ago, expanded into the email marketing space, where we offer a tool called Marketing Campaigns, which is a full, service template engine, more designed for, newsletter sends, promotional marketing email, not so much the API-based infrastructure part. We also are email experts, so we offer what we call expert services, so deliverability consulting services, onboarding services to make sure that if you use Sendgrid, you get started off on the right foot, and we help you, really hands-on approach to helping you get set up and integrated with Sendgrid. And then obviously the delivery consulting services can either be an ongoing engagement or a one-off engagement, where we really help kind of tune and analyze your email program, again, to make sure you guys get the best results, the best ROI from whatever it is you're trying to accomplish with email. So that's kind of Sendgrid's offering in a nutshell.
Awesome. And just, to help set the stage about where I'm coming from as well, Sendwithus is an email template management system. You can basically use something like Sendgrid and pump it through Sendwithus to send, and it'll you'll go in and you can iterate and optimize the email without touching the code. So it's really great for marketers to be able to do that. Set up A/B test of campaigns, and you can send a couple of different ways. So it integrates with your database or API sends. So it's kind of a Sendwithus plus Sendgrid equals a lot of happy people for us. And then I did just want to share a little bit about both of us, just a little bit of background, deeper dive into just our companies, and then we'll dig into the deliverability stuff.
Sure. So Sendgrid was founded in 2009. Our global headquarters is in Denver, Colorado. We also have offices in Orange County, California, Redwood City. We have a proxy office, a small office in London, and also a overnight kind of support team that it is based in Romania to make sure we can get 24/7 support to people in different time zones. We're the leading deliverability platform for customer communication. So not just email infrastructure anymore. We're hoping to really guide your entire customer communication platform, and in the future, more offerings will be coming with, hopefully SMS and push and all that stuff. For now, we're doing email. We send about 1 billion emails a day for companies worldwide, and actually, Black Friday we set a new record for sending volume. It was 1.6 billion messages in a single day. So that was a pretty big milestone for us, and that number, our daily sends is growing every week.
That's nuts. It's a lot of email.
Yeah, big day.
And just a little bit about Sendwithus. We were a Y Combinator company founded in January of 2013, and I'm in the San Francisco office in California, and we also have an office up in Victoria, BC. And like I said before, we used to control and optimize email. We're a top 300 email sender worldwide, so that's pretty sweet too. Not 1 billion, but maybe we'll get there. We'll get there.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so on to content for today. We're talking about deliverability, like the background about like what it is and why it should matter to you, the most important email metrics for sending reputation, the top 4 expectations of your senders, and then a little bit about A/B testing and how to do that and make your emails the best they can be without compromising your deliverability that you've worked so hard to get that right. And then we'll have a little Q&A section, and then we'll let you go on with your day. But yeah, so Luke, if you want to start out.
Sure. So why does email matter? Why does deliverability matter? So according to a VentureBeat article, email is actually the #1 return on investment per dollar spent. Email marketing generates $38 in revenue across, averaged across many verticals. So with that kind of ROI, it beats print media, TV commercials, flyers on windshields, radio. Email really is an incredibly valuable marketing channel for businesses across, almost any sector.
A sign spinner.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one too. We also, this is just kind of anecdotal, we have one of our largest senders. They're a big player in the streaming music segment, and they had a big chunk of their email, particularly going to Gmail, started landing in the spam folder. In a period of less than 2 weeks, they estimated that the mail landing in the spam folder cost them about $6 million. So,
yikes.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, the size of their list is pretty impressive too. So this number obviously will be a lot smaller for smaller senders, but it definitely highlights the issue that mail that lands in the spam, like deliverability issues, cost you money. And the next slide, I believe the next slide kind of highlights this point, is that mail landing in the spam folder doesn't make you any money. Like, when's the last time you went into your spam folder and started like opening emails and actually ended up buying something? A message that lands in spam is almost as good as a message that wasn't sent. So a key to preventing this kind of thing is really about monitoring your engagement, monitoring your deliverability metrics. Because if you don't, if this client of ours or Sendgrid wasn't monitoring the open and click rates and bounce responses and end-to-end times for this client, it would have been, the damage would have been a lot greater. We wouldn't have maybe caught it for 4 to 6 weeks, and that $6 million number could have doubled or tripled. There's also some value in monitoring your metrics, in that if you start to see a trend, you can kind of make changes and at least be ready for some kind of deliverability issue before it happens. But if you're not looking at your open rates, if you're not looking at different responses, maybe your IP gets blacklisted, you're really kind of in the blind, and you won't know something's wrong until it's too late. The other thing to know is that inbox providers are constantly changing the way they filter email. So I think the reason why there's no big books that are written on how to do email right is because the stuff changes so frequently. There's really no set of rules that worked 5 years ago that works today. The only way to really prevent this kind of stuff from happening is to, like I said, monitor your metrics, but also try to get into as many different email marketing circles, read the blogs, find out what's new in deliverability, what do inbox providers expect from senders? It seems a little bit dry, but read their sender guidelines and try to adhere to those as best you can. No one's going to meet all of their standards, but the more of those boxes you can check off, and the fresher you are on what are the expectations for email marketing these days, the better chance you're going to have of avoiding, deliverability issues that cost you money.
Awesome.
So with that kind of out of the way, we know it's important. We know email is good and it makes you money. But what is, when you hear the word deliverability, what does deliverability actually mean? So it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Deliverability can be your open rate. It can be your click rate. It could be 250 OK, which means the message got delivered. Like, is the mail actually going through? It can be the end-to-end time. Are you having mail delays? How long did the messages take to get there? Is deliverability just inbox placement, spam versus inbox? Is deliverability ROI? Is that really all that matters to you? Like, how much money am I actually getting per message that I send? Well, the answer is yes. Like, it's all these things. Deliverability is different things to different people. Some people don't really care about clicks. If you're just sending kind of receipts, like maybe your click number isn't that important. Maybe end-to-end time isn't super critical because you're not sending time-sensitive deals. But the truth is, like, deliverability is all of these things. And depending on what you're trying to accomplish with email, it can be one or two of them, or it could be the whole spread. So there's one factor that we're going to talk about in pretty good detail today that really determines whether or not you're nailing these marks. It really determines if you're succeeding or failing on any of these, and it really is your reputation. And we're going to go through what exactly is a sender reputation and why does it matter for your for the success or failure of your email program. So back in the day, reputation was pretty simple. And what is back in the day? How far back are we talking here? Back in the day is something like 2014. So this might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but the point I'm trying to illustrate here is that things change fast. So just 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, your whole reputation was just like your IP address. Your IP address reputation was a pretty simple formula of something like how many spam complaints did we generate from this IP address, and if it's a lot, then your reputation's bad. If it's a little, then your reputation's good. If your IP generates a bad reputation, maybe you just throw it away and you get a new one. This was not long ago that this is how email marketing works. Today, we have 2016. We have a much different landscape of what inbox providers are using to determine what your reputation is. We still have IP reputation. But it's not so simple anymore. Are you using a dedicated or a shared IP? Those things matter. Is your IP neighborhood good? So maybe you have some senders that are just a couple IP addresses away from you that are doing some really bad things. That could impact your reputation. How many IPs do you have? There is, believe it or not, there is a limit to, more isn't always merrier. You want to have enough IPs to make sure your mail delivers quickly, but too many IPs can actually make you look suspicious and cause inbox providers to think that you're trying to hide your traffic or spread it across a large range of IPs. So IP reputation definitely still a thing, but it's more complicated than it was just 2 or 3 years ago. We also have a concept of content reputation. So the actual content that you're sending generates its own reputation. The templates in your emails, the links and the URLs that are contained in your emails, the syntax, so the words and phrases that you use in your emails will actually start to generate a reputation because sophisticated inbox providers like Gmail are fingerprinting these things. And they know that we've seen a template that looks like this that contains the words "Greetings from Sendgrid," and we know that these messages always generate a bunch of spam complaints, and that can start to, hopefully it doesn't because it's Sendgrid, but that can actually start to impact your reputation. So you've got a healthy IP, but content that they've seen before that generates complaints, and that can cause issues too. Your domains also have a reputation. So without getting too much into the technical weeds, your domain in most email messages appears in 3 spots: your SPF domain, your DKIM domain, and then the domain and the from address. These generate a reputation in the same way that your IP and your content does. but it's important that you're aware that the landscape of what your reputation is much wider than it used to be, again, just 2 or 3 years ago. So this is a lot. This is a lot, and it can seem like it's very complicated. If you just write down this formula on the board there, this is how you do email, and everything will work if you just learn a simple formula. No, I'm just kidding.
Easy.
Yeah. But really, we can help simplify this. There are a few things that the two major contributors to your reputation is, and at risk of kind of oversimplifying it a bit, but the two major contributors are engagement and list hygiene. So when we talk about engagement, and these are the metrics, or these are the signals that will help determine your reputation for your IP address, for your content, and for your domain. But when we talk about engagement, most people are probably familiar with a couple engagement metrics that are really easy to track. And this would be things like opens, clicks, unsubscribes, and spam reports. These are things, you've probably looked into your data and your metrics and determined what your rates are for these 4 things. But there's a few other things that are harder to measure. Some are even impossible to measure, but we know that inbox providers are looking at these things when they try to determine your reputation. So these other things include, and are probably not limited to, did the recipient add your address to their contact list? Did they mark a message as not spam? So if a message landed in the spam folder, did they go and actually take the action and say not spam? This is a huge benefit to your reputation. Did they move a message to the primary tab? So in Gmail, they have the tabs arrangement. If someone moves a message from promotions to primary, that's a small kind of signal to Gmail that this mail is really trusted and that people are liking it. Did they reply to the message? So the days of do not reply, in my opinion, are over. There could still be some reasons to have a do not reply address, something like an error notification. It's not like it's a bad idea, but encouraging replies and trying to find some way to gracefully handle replies is actually a good thing, because if they see a back and forth conversation between a marketer and a recipient, it can add some positive reputation points. Forwarding is also something that we know that a few inbox providers are looking at. So if you send someone a message and it gets forwarded off a bunch of times, they see that again as a positive sign that mail that looks like this from this IP with this domain is generating a lot of positive signals. So it's a small thing that it's hard to measure, sometimes impossible to measure, but we know that engagement is no longer just opens and clicks divided by unsubscribes and spam reports or something like that. Like the equation is a lot more. They're taking into account a lot more signals. So the other thing I mentioned is list hygiene. We've probably all heard of invalid addresses, so bounces. Everyone knows that a high bounce rate is bad. You want to keep your bounce rate down because that is a big signal. If you're sending to a bunch of bad addresses, you might have either purchased a list or you have some address collection problems. So that's definitely a big part of list hygiene. The other thing, spam traps. We know that spam traps are bad. Probably a topic for another day. We could probably talk about a half hour just on what spam traps are and how they work, but we know that they're bad. There's one other thing, though, that I think I'm considering 2016 to be the year of time since last engaged. Time since last engaged, time since last engaged. And the reason I'm saying this multiple times is because it's where a lot of senders miss the mark. And what I mean by time since last engaged is, in your list, do you have a large collection, a large number of addresses who have gone a long time without engaging with your email? And I want to show a quote that I think this was from a conference that we attended earlier this year from the Hotmail anti-spam team. And they said, their words, not mine, sending to recipients who haven't engaged in 6 months is the kiss of death for your reputation. And when they said this, all the other folks from all the other inbox providers were kind of nodding their heads, meaning, we're watching similar signals. We've got similar processes in place. But what this means for you is that you've got to have a way to determine who your really long-term non-engaged recipients are and either remove them from your list or at least reduce the sending frequency that you're using to send to them. Because every message you send to someone who hasn't opened in 6 months is essentially like reducing your reputation. And we're really starting to find that good senders, so non-malicious senders who are having inboxing issues at the major ISPs, and they're not generating a bunch of spam reports and they're not generating crazy unsubscribes, but their mail's landing in the spam folder, we almost always find that it's because they're missing the mark here. So it's really important that you keep a as big of list as you can, but not a big list of really unengaged people, because it's going to hurt your results to your engaged people as well, if you're trying to really wring that sponge out and send to as many people as possible. So expectations for senders. What do inbox providers expect from a good marketing sender? Like, what would Gmail, for example, want to see every marketing sender do to be considered kind of good or great in their eyes? So kind of already touched on this, but monitor your engagement and send accordingly. Like, the days of kind of set it and forget it email marketing is over. Like, you really got to be on top of your numbers and know who your power engagers are, know who your less engagers are, know who your non-engagers are, and send accordingly. Send less mail to your non-engaged recipients. You can even send more mail to your really engaged recipients. If someone opens every single message you send them, maybe you're not sending them enough. There's no harm in sending more mail to people that are consistently and like excessively opening your messages. So you can probably design a couple campaigns targeted just at your power users, but be careful about sending more mail to people who don't engage, because like I said, those are probably hurting you. When your open rates drop, you need to probably start sending less mail. If you see open rates start falling across the board, lower your frequency. Go from being a daily sender to a every other day sender, or a weekly sender to a every other week sender, because every message you send that lands in the spam folder is kind of, you're in a hole and you're digging. So you need to stop digging. And the best way to do that is just reduce your frequency, think about your targeting, and if you can catch this trend early, it greatly reduces the likelihood of, really, really excessive or long-term deliverability problems.
Cool.
So honoring unsubscribes and spam reports, this seems like a no-brainer, but there's some little nuances to this that some people miss. First of all, your spam report rate should generally be under 0.08%. If we find people inching up into like the 0.1 or 0.2% spam report rate, that's normally when we see inboxing issues arise. We've heard the 0.08% number from a number of postmasters at large ISPs. It seems to be the industry standard for what is considered a healthy complaint rate. Even though it seems really low, it's the number that is commonly used for best practice for spam reports. Unsubscribes, make it really easy. We're going to cover this in a little more detail later in a couple slides, but make it easy for your recipients to leave your mailing list. If they can't find the unsubscribe, or they don't trust it, maybe they don't think you're going to really honor their unsubscribe, they know where the spam button is, and they will find it and they will click it repeatedly. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about this from a marketing perspective. I like to call it sort of like the unsubscribe, because so from a marketing, perspective, my job, or most marketers' jobs, is to drive demand. Capture leads and to talk to them and to drive more revenue. So you get someone on your list, you're super stoked, and then they want to leave. And I think maybe part of the initial reaction is I really want to just like hold on to their ankle and get dragged across the floor, like, please don't leave. Like, I promise I'll be better. Like, that kind of thing. But really, the best thing you can do is just kind of like nicely show them the door, and maybe they'll come back and join your list again. But so like, this is an example of making it really easy for people to leave their list. One of my favorite emails is TravelZoo's top 20 email, and at the bottom it's just super crystal clear. I can click to modify or unsubscribe. It's right there. If I can't find that, like Luke said, people are much more likely to just go up and report spam. Like, or the worst thing you can do is maybe like request someone to log in. That is the worst. Is like, if anyone has to go like rack their brain to try to remember a password to go unsubscribe, it's enough to just like get frustrated, close the window, spam, I don't want to look at this ever again. And then I wanted to share, there was this email I received the other day, and it's from this company called 31, which is sort of like a Tupperware type party where someone has it at their house. And I went to one of these like over 3 years ago, and I've never received an email, and I got one in October from them. And so I scrolled down, and there's all these links. Okay, email preferences and unsubscribe. So I clicked unsubscribe. It took me to a website where I had to put in my email address. then it said they were going to send me an email. So I clicked on the link. So it's now what, 4 or 5 clicks? And then I finally get there and I've got another screenshot, but I scroll down and I'm not even subscribed to anything. So not only did they do what Luke said earlier not to do, was they emailed someone, like they obviously don't have very good list hygiene, because I've never received an email, and I certainly haven't engaged in over 3 years. They still send it to me, I'm not on the list. I don't really understand how I got this, but it took me several clicks. So like a general rule is keep it to 1 or 2 clicks for someone to unsubscribe. And I just wanted to again highlight this Travel Zoo email. Whenever I click on unsubscribe, it takes me to this website where it's got a really crystal clear, my first option is just 3 things. I think that probably the reason why someone might unsubscribe from a travel newsletter is that the deals aren't, personalized for them. So Travel Zoo said, okay, well, if that's one of the reasons people unsubscribe, let me have the first option be a simple, I can update my location. The second option is I can downgrade and receive less emails. I can just say, okay, I only want one once a week. And then I've also got a very obvious option to just completely opt out. And I didn't have to scroll, I didn't have to interpret the message. It was just crystal clear and in language I understood, or, okay, yeah, it's super clear for me to understand and to find. And again, oh, sorry?
From a deliverability perspective, we really advocate for the down subscribe option too. Like that's actually one of the better ways that I've seen of a 1-button click that just says too many emails, get it once a week instead. Like that's really clear. You don't have to go through some clunky preference center and pick like, Tuesday and Thursday and then bi-week. Like it's just too much, once a week, and then you're done. It's really well done.
Exactly. I mean, and from a marketing perspective, like you still get to keep them on your list. So you don't completely lose your communication with them. You just, don't talk to them as frequently. And so you're both on the same page about what's happening. Also, just a quick look, 31 also had all this crazy language about transactional and all this stuff and all these email addresses for me to add. And I mean, I knew what it meant because I worked in the email marketing space, but your average person is going to see something like this and just get really confused, probably irritated, and might just unsubscribe to everything because they don't, they might be overwhelmed and receive too many emails anyway.
Yeah, that page hurts my head. All right, so back to a few like more expectations for senders. This one is, I'm not usually a fan of a lot of the old school kind of ways to avoid the spam folder because a lot of them don't apply anymore. But this is one that's been around for years and years, and it still is a big deal. Text to image ratio. So rule of thumb, 2 to 4 sentences of text per image in your email. And the reason for this is that if an email consists of only a single image, or maybe I actually see a few now that are they look like there's text, but it's actually just 2 or 3 big images like on top of one another, and that's their whole template. They look great. They're actually beautifully designed images, but the problem is Gmail can't read what the text is if it's in an image. Hotmail can't tell whether this is a ad for like a sweater or some kind of pharmaceutical spam. And unfortunately, because spam's such a prevalent issue in today's world, they have to err on the side of, if I don't know what it is, I assume it's bad. It's not like a guaranteed ticket to the spam folder, but it's certainly a lot of, stones on that side of the scale that's going to push it towards the spam folder if they can't tell what the message is. So the example on the right, I think is a good example, and you'll probably notice that it's not technically 2 to 4 sentences per image, but we chose this because it's a rule of thumb. Like the thing is, there's enough text in this email for any kind of spam filter or, something that's maybe reading the text of the message to tell that, tell your favorite restaurant when your perfect date night should be. Something about delivery and something about wake up to and have lunch. Like this is clearly a message about, food or dining or something like that. So don't live and die by this 2 to 4 sentence rule. More of a judgment call. Like just make sure that if this email had no images in it, would I know what it was for? And if the answer is yes, then you're probably good. You don't need to go and divide the number of images by the number of sentences. It's overkill. But, rule of thumb, 2 to 4 sentences per image. So this one might be a little bit complicated, but I think it's an important rule. Whenever possible, be consistent with your domain and your IPs. there are good reasons to switch your domain or do a new subdomain or something like that. There's probably even, there's definitely good reasons to get new IPs or add new IPs to your, maybe you have a Sendgrid account, your volume's going up and you just need to add more IPs. Like, there's good reasons to do that. But being consistent with your domains and IPs these days is really important, because I think it was a Microsoft that told us one time that if they see a domain like come to their system that they've never seen before, a new domain or a new IP, it has a 97% likelihood of being a malicious like spam operation. So not just like an aggressive marketer, but actually like botnet spam or people doing bad things. So 97%. If you're using a new domain or a new IP, like there's a 97% chance that you're a bad guy to them. So the less you can change with your what we call the sending configuration, so IPs and domains, the better. The other thing, new IPs and even new domains these days require some kind of like ramp up period. You don't want to just start sending 50,000 messages off of a domain or an IP you've never used. So when you do make changes to these things, it costs you a little bit of time and effort to do a proper warm up and monitor and make sure that your new stuff didn't trigger anything with any of the major spam filters. So it is just kind of a headache to change these things and to do it right. So the best thing you can do is keep it consistent as often as you can. I think maybe the last point on that one, the last point on that is that back in the day, we touched on this a bit earlier, throwing away your IP and getting a new one wasn't really a bad idea. These days, it's almost always the right thing to do to work to repair, even if you have a pretty bad delivery problem. Establishing and maintaining a good reputation rather than just getting a new IP is 9 times out of 10 the right choice.
Cool. And now I just wanted to talk a little bit about transactional emails and deliverability and A/B testing. And so, sorry, the trash man's outside if you can hear that loud banging. So you've got your deliverability under control. You've got a great sending reputation. And from a marketer perspective, yeah, I want to like take advantage of that and talk to everybody and, email them, but don't get all mad scientist about it. You've got to still be careful and make sure that you're keeping that intact while you're going after new business and everything. And I'm going to try to keep this section a little short because I know we're at 10:36 and I wanted to get everyone on with their day at 10:45. So apologies if this is a little quick, but we'll start with transactional emails, just a couple of like level setting metrics about why they're important. So when we talk about transactional, we're talking about usually they're emails that are sent automatically in response to either like an action on an app or a purchase, you left something in your cart, something like that. Like for example, a welcome email, it's opened 4 times more and 5 times more often frequently clicked than a marketing email. A notification email has a super high engagement rate, a receipt email, those are super, super valuable. And you do have some space in there. So I'm going to talk in a minute about like how you can use that space to like A/B test content or, put an offer or something. But just before we get into that, I want to remind you like, you've done all this really hard work to make your deliverability great, and you've set expectations with all of your recipients about like what they're going to get. So you want to be careful about not changing too much. You want to change one thing at a time to isolate like what's the winner in an A/B test, and then also like you don't want to detract from the point of the transactional email. So we'll get into that in a second, but first, Luke's got a tech perspective on like why transactional emails are treated differently.
Yeah, so inbox providers genuinely care about transactional email getting to the inbox. It's a huge driver of complaints for them when a user of like Gmail, for example, has to go into their spam folder to dig out a password reset or something. So they genuinely want these messages to get to the spam folder. Their definition for transactional email is basically what was just mentioned, but they're think of transactional in kind of the smallest bucket you reasonably can. Like welcome letters would be a good one because they're generally not prone to complaints and all that stuff. But password resets, email confirmations, receipts, invoices, legal notifications, these are things that Microsoft and Gmail will bend over backwards to make sure they get to the inbox. So because marketing and promotional gets treated very differently, they're less sympathetic to those inboxing well. It's pretty important to have these kind of segmented onto their own IP addresses if you can. because when problems arise, if you need to escalate and get remediation for an inboxing issue, if it's transactional mail, they're going to fix that problem really quickly. If it's muddled in with a bunch of marketing email, they'll probably still do what they can to help, but it makes the troubleshooting and mitigation a little bit more difficult. So try to think about transactional and marketing emails as being two very different things, because in the receiver's eyes, they definitely are.
Yeah, and for sure, if something does happen and everything gets like mucked up and like, you know, like you said, if you're sending from the same IP and then all of your messages start going to spam, it's like, you know, someone resets their password and they can't find their password reset email. Like that is the worst thing you want to happen. So you just want to tread lightly, but have fun. So a little bit about like A/B testing within these. Like it's a great opportunity to test things like subject lines or body text, like images, headings, CTAs. For example, like if you've got, just as a super basic thing, if you've got like a low open rate but a high click-through rate, once someone opens the email they're clicking through because it's applicable to them, then you can, you know, segment a subset of this audience and you can test, you know, subject lines to increase the open rate. And then you can apply that learning to other emails. Something else you can do, you know, for example, if your like click-through rate is low but people are opening the emails, you can play with maybe the placement of the CTA or the color, the image, the body copy, but change like one thing at a time, again, to be able to isolate exactly what's the winner. And then you can apply that learning. And then a little bit more about specifically, I think, something that's becoming more popular is testing offers in transactional emails. So like, a general rule would be something like, and again, this is just general rule, not like you don't really need to measure and everything, but if you're going to take something like a confirmation email, keep 80% of it transactional, right? Like just like it is, people expect it. You've got all their details in there, like their shipping address, the price, whatever. And then maybe at the bottom, put a coupon, or maybe at the top, like, but use 20% of it. Make it, don't try to hide the information that they're expecting in their transactional email, but you can still play with the offer. And something cool you can do is you can segment and do something like, you know, test like different offers like $10, $15, $20 and segment that out, see what the click-through rate is, and, you know, test it. And if someone is just as likely to buy with a $10 coupon as a $20 coupon, then you can do that with everybody and just offer the $10 one, and then you've saved all of that money in between. So, you know, you can also do something like adding an action, like if adding a credit card to your site or something like that makes the person more sticky and likely to come back, you can incentivize them to do something like that in a transactional email as well. You know, like I wouldn't do anything with like a password reset email, but, you know, a different notification style email offers something in return, you know, free shipping on your next purchase if you save a credit card or something like that. So they're not actually spending any money at that point, but you can, you know, incentivize them to do an action that you want them to do within an email they're already looking at. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. If anybody has any questions, I know we have one in there. Just to like wrap up, we're gonna post these slides as well as the videos. So if you want to like go back and write down, you know, the top 4 things to do with sending reputation and things like that, we'll have that information available. But in general, sending reputation is super, super important. With list hygiene, the time since last engaged, like Luke said, is going to be like the thing of 2016 and 2017. That's like totally important and key to keeping that in check. And then make unsubscribes easy. Make it an art, you know, make it honor their request, and if you can, offer them a downgrade option so they receive less email from you without completely losing them. And then be consistent with your IP addresses and email frequency with A/B testing, messaging, and you can, you know, do offers to a segment. I know one question was about, let's see, this is for Luke. So if my reputation gets pretty bad, what's the downside of just going ahead and switching to a new IP?
So that's a good question, and I think I kind of touched on this a little bit in one of the previous slides. But to me, the cost of switching to a new IP generally means you've got to do another warm up, right? So I mean, there is a good way to start up new IPs, but I think my argument is that it's maybe more of a headache, or maybe even just a wash with repairing your existing one. So you get a new IP, you've got to kind of slow down your traffic and, you know, warm up that IP address. Because it's new, it starts out with like basically, it's kind of like a credit score. New IP is like having no credit score. No one trusts you. So you've got to work up to it slowly. And I think my argument would be that your existing IP, with just a little bit of work, dial back your setting frequency, target some super engaged users for a short period of time, usually 2 weeks, maybe a month if something went really bad, but really it shouldn't take more than a couple weeks to repair the reputation of any IP address or domain. And my argument again is that if you getting into the habit of just like throwing away an IP when things get bad is sort of treating the symptom and not the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, all the support overhead and technical overhead and monitoring involved with starting up a new IP address is just too much to really justify it, when you could just make a few small tweaks, even if they're temporary, to your sending behavior to repair your existing IP. That's always my recommendation.
Cool. And in general, like if you go in and start making those changes, like what's the time frame for improvement there? Like, is it possible to see improvement within like a week or two, or does it take a month?
Yeah, so I think that about 30 days is the longest I've ever seen it take. And this was somebody whose their marketing team got really, really overzealous and basically sent to a huge list of unengaged, some really bad addresses, and they sent to it for like a week straight without telling us. So they dug a pretty deep hole for themselves, but we were still able to cut down their list size, or cut down who they were targeting and how much mail they were sending. And within about 2 weeks, we saw some results. And then within 4 weeks, we were basically back to better than we were before they ever like made the mistake. And I think they ended up finding that their new sending cadence and their new sending volumes were generating more revenue, so actually more opens and clicks while sending less mail. And in the long run, they stuck with the new strategy because it worked. But I think 2 weeks is a good rule of thumb, but I wouldn't start panicking until about 30 days out. If you see no results in 30 days, then something else might be going on.
Excellent. Just good to know. So if you can do some things to try to improve, it's not like a 6-month waiting period or anything like that. All's not lost. Because what you said, if it goes to spam for 2 weeks, we could lose $6 million, and we don't want that.
Right.
All right, so I think we're all finished. I really want to thank everybody for taking the time to tune in today and listen to Luke and I talk about email deliverability and things to do to improve your transactional emails with testing. If you have any questions, these are email addresses. Feel free to send them over, or if you have any requests for like a future webinar or anything, please let us know.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Bye.